Dhanishta, also known as Shravishta, is a nakshatra formed by the stars in the head of the dolphin constellation, Delphinus. These stars form a box which appears to the Vedic eye as a drum. If you project these stars to the ecliptic and abstract them to the moon's daily span of movement, then Dhanishta will begin at 23 degrees 20 minutes of the 10th Rashi and end at 6 degrees 40 minutes of the 11th. This corresponds currently to 17 degrees 26 minutes of Aquarius to 0 degrees and 46 minutes of Pisces in the tropical zodiac. The name Dhanishta is a compound word with two components, dhan and ishta, not dhana and nishta, as many people think. Ishta means something one considers very, very, very important. So we can translate it with words like beloved, desired, or even sacred. Dhan means to make a sound. Now this is Sanskrit, it's not Hindi. So dhan is not the same as dhana, which means wealth or riches. So this is why Dhanishta is also known as Shravishta, because Shrav also means to listen to sound. The words dhan and shrav, they both imply movement. And that's why they come to mean sounding and listening. Because conversation involves movement of sound and information back and forth. So Shravishta or Dhanishta, that term literally means beloved sound or sacred sound. Now, you might remember hearing this word Shrav in last week's video. Then we did the nakshatra Shravana, which is just previous to this one, Shravishta. Shravishta and Shravana are another pair of nakshatras like the Purva and Uttara nakshatras. Shravana is the ear that receives the sound, and Dhanishta is the drum that makes the sound. So the drum makes the sound, and the sound travels to the ear. So this sound always involves movement. So it's easy to remember that both Shravana and Shravishta are Chala nakshatra, nakshatras that signify movement and skill with things that require movement. Shravana, the ear, symbolizes hearing sounds, and you hear these sounds, and these sounds can transform you and carry you like a river, Shrav, through all obstacles and ignorance. That's what Shravana symbolizes. Shravishta symbolizes what makes those sounds. So it's highly symbolic of musicians, powerful speakers, teachers, all the people or things that make inspiring and desirable sounds. And the most inspiring, desirable, and sacred of all sounds are the words of the Vedas. The Deva of Shravishta is referred to as Vasu. We might take this to mean Vasudev. And in fact, in Brihat Samhita, Vraha Mihira refers to Dhanishta as Vasudev. Vasudev is the name for Vishnu, and Vishnu really is the Shravishta, the origin of the sounds, the origin of the words that resound in the Vedas. So we might like this, just to say that the Deva of Shravishta is Vishnu. But the problem with that is that Vishnu is already there in the previous nakshatra, Shravana. Another explanation is that Vasu refers to the Ashtavasu, a group of 8 deities. These 8 gods are Earth, Prithvi, water, Apa, fire, Agni, air, Vayu, space, Dyal, and the sun, which is also the illumination, the intellect, which is Aditya, the moon, which is also the mind, the emotional mind, which is Soma, and the stars, the nakshatra, which represent identity, which is the deepest root of existence, like the stars. These 8 elements Krishna describes in Gita as Bhinnam Prakritim Ashtadaha. And there's some sense to having this immediately following Vishnu, Shravana's nakshatra, because Krishna, who's the Vishnu avatar, says, Aham Kritsnasya Prabhava. Pindam Prakritim Ashtara, that he is the source of these 8 ingredients of reality. So there's some philosophical sense to saying that the 8 elements of nature, the 8 Vasus, should immediately follow Vishnu. And there's also some sense in saying that these elements have some connection to sound, because according to the science of Sankhya, the tangible elements earth, water, fire, and air evolve as a result of sound waves acting as a catalyst to change space into these other elements. But there's still a problem. Within this group, there are deities who are duplicated. We know Apa, water, is the goddess of Purvashada. Agni, fire, is the god of Kritika. Vayu, air, is the god of Swati. Soma, moon, is the god of Mrigashirsha. So there's a lot of overlap, actually. So I'm going to suggest a new interpretation, taking the meaning to the literal meaning of Vasu, which means light. In the Vedas, light is always used to symbolize and explain consciousness, because light is illumination, and illumination enables sight, and sight is our primary perception, and consciousness is perception. So you can really easily illustrate consciousness by talking about sight and light. So light symbolizes consciousness, and that's why Vishnu, the original conscious entity, is called Vasudeva, the god of light. And that's why there is a lot of sun worship in the Vedas. So there's also now a lot of sense to having the Vasu after Vishnu, to having the deity of Shravishta come right after the deity of Shravana. The sense is that Vishnu is the origin of all the light, all the consciousness, and Shravishta is the Vasu, all the light, the rays of light. So it's nice that the rays of light are right after the source of light. So you and I are the Vasu. We are the conscious entities, and we're also divine. So I'm suggesting that the Devata, the ultimate Devata for Shravishta Nakshatra should be understood to be individual consciousness, the Atma. And Vasu is the deity representing the individual consciousness. Consciousness is what perceives things, and it's what initiates action. The more fully conscious you are, the more fully you perceive things, and the more carefully you initiate and carry out your actions. So what does it tell us about Shravishta, that consciousness is the Deva? It symbolizes improved perception and improved dexterity. So Shravishta is very good for noticing subtle nuances which will go unnoticed by your peers. The people standing next to you won't notice this. But if you have a lot of things in Shravishta or something important in Shravishta, you'll notice something. Shravishta is good for doing things which require dexterity and attention to delicate, refined details. So if you can pay attention and execute things with great dexterity and great attention to detail, then you produce good objects. Good objects of perception, that's the 8 Vasus. Those are the objects which evolve out of consciousness. The objects which Shravishta is especially good at producing are objects of sound, objects like words or music, or also objects involving movement like gestures. So Shravishta is excellent for the production of sounds, words, gestures, movements, and is also very well suited, like Shravana, for listening and learning.